Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a headfirst dive down the rabbit hole of history's absolute greatest mysteries. We're going to start with some deeply grounded, undeniable historical facts, and then we're steering straight into the mind-bending theories that challenge our very understanding of reality. Let's get right into it.
So we really have to ask ourselves, are history's most enduring mysteries just misread facts, or are they actual evidence of the unbelievable? We'll kick things off by looking at how perfectly documented history can still hold massive, world-shaking surprises. Because sometimes, the most unbelievable events are the ones backed by the hardest evidence.
Section 1, Battles and Buried Treasures. Let's look at some physical history hunts.
Think about how dangerous it is to ignore hard evidence. A perfect example is the start of World War II on the Eastern Front. Soviet leader Joseph Stalin was absolutely positive that his 1939 non-aggression pact with Hitler was rock solid. He was getting intelligence from literally everywhere, Berlin, Tokyo, the US, warning him that an attack was coming. But he just didn't buy it. He completely ignored the signs until June 1941, when Operation Barbarossa launched as this massive, devastating surprise attack.
And just to wrap your head around the sheer scale of that surprise, over 3 million German soldiers poured across the border into Soviet territory. To put that into perspective, imagine an invasion spanning a front that's roughly the distance from San Diego all the way up to Seattle. History is absolutely full of these massive, undeniable physical events that can reshape our world in the blink of an eye.
But what happens when history loses track of the physical evidence? Well, searching for proof of those historical legends is grueling work. Just ask the investigators over on Oak Island, off the coast of Nova Scotia. They've spent decades hunting for buried treasure, whether it's from the Knights Templar or old Spanish galleons. As investigator Marty Legina says, finding irrefutable proof is the only thing that justifies that kind of relentless search.
The crazy part is they're actually finding physical anomalies that just shouldn't be there. We're talking a Spanish copper coin dating back to the 1500s or 1600s pulled right out of a swamp. They unearthed a massive ancient oak tree stump buried under 4 to 6 feet of earth, which heavily suggests the swamp itself is artificially man-made. Plus, they've tracked deep, non-ferrous metal hits over 90 feet underground. These clues strongly hint that our history might be layered much, much deeper than we realize.
Which brings us to Section 2, Anomalies and Force Fields. Time to test the impossible.
Now let's head over to Skinwalker Ranch, where researchers decided to scientifically test a very localized, very weird anomaly. They actually mapped out an invisible 2,000-foot radius bubble. When they towed an instrument-laden balloon called a helicite through this boundary, it met physical resistance. It changed direction like it hit an invisible current. So to push the envelope, they started launching rockets straight into the center of it.
And the results were completely baffling. High-speed cameras caught rockets immediately rearing sideways in midair. Heavy-duty parachute cords that can withstand 500 pounds of force, they just snapped like twigs. And the GPS trackers were recording data points that made it look like the equipment was floating completely out in space. It acts like a literal physical wall up in the sky.
This strange suspension of physics brings us out to the Mojave Desert. Back in 1952, a heavy freight train supposedly vanished into a massive sandstorm. But over the years, eyewitnesses, and we're talking experienced pilots here, have repeatedly reported seeing a spectral locomotive streaking across the empty desert floor. No tracks, just open sand. And it's clocking speeds exceeding 1,000 miles per hour, speeds that would utterly destroy a human crew. It forces us to ask, what did they actually see out there?
So we gotta ask the big question here. Are these simply mass hysteria events, or do they represent physical gateways and force fields existing right here on Earth? If the laws of physics can be manipulated like this today, it opens the door to some pretty wild possibilities about our ancient past.
Moving on to Section 3, Ancient Gods or Aliens. Let's look at the origin of civilizations. Take the ancient metropolis of Teotihuacan in Mexico. Local legends there describe ancestors emerging from 7 mythical caves, which, by the way, archaeologists have actually found under the Pyramid of the Sun. But the myth goes further. It describes gods descending from the sky in a shaking, trembling giant flint knife to jumpstart human civilization. Some theorists look at that description and wonder, are we reading ancient folklore or an eyewitness account of an extraterrestrial craft landing?
And Teotihuacan isn't just an isolated story. Across the globe, we see these recurring, almost impossible patterns. Over in Turkey, a king built precision star shafts aligned perfectly to Leo and Orion. In Peru, you have legends of a bird deity named Nilap sprouting wings and ascending to the sky. And in Honduras, Mayan statues depict figures with strange boxes and tubes that look remarkably like modern astronaut suits. The ancients clearly had a deep, highly advanced knowledge of the cosmos.
All right, Section 4, Modern UFOs and Abductions. Let's jump into modern-era encounters.
This ancient fascination with the skies, it escalated rapidly into the modern era. Let's trace the timeline for a second. It really kicks off in 1947 when pilot Kenneth Arnold spotted objects moving at an impossible 1,700 miles per hour, skipping like saucers on water, which is actually where we get the iconic phrase, flying saucers. And that timeline hasn't stopped. It extends right up to a frantic 911 call in Las Vegas in 2023 about 10-foot creatures in a backyard, which was backed up by police body cam footage of a fireball falling from the sky.
Now, one of the most compelling stops on that timeline happened in 1994 in Zimbabwe. Over 60 children at the aerial school independently corroborated seeing disc-like crafts land. They drew the exact same beings with very large eyes and large heads, and they reported receiving a telepathic warning about the dangers of human technology. Decades later, despite intense skepticism, those witnesses still stand by their story.
What's truly staggering here is the sheer variety and volume of these global reports. You've got 4 men experiencing shared missing time in Allagash, Maine, only to recall medical examinations under hypnosis. We even saw alleged 1,000-year-old non-human bodies being presented to lawmakers in the Mexican Congress in 2023. Whether you view these events as mass delusions or profound biological truths, the global demand for real answers is totally undeniable.
And that brings us to Section 5, Extraterrestrial Biology on Earth, looking for alien life in our own oceans.
Because what if we don't even need to look up at the sky to find alien life? What if it's already here? Back in 2018, 33 scientists published a highly controversial paper highlighting that octopuses possess 33,000 genes. To put that into perspective, that is about 50% more genetic diversity than we humans have.
The biology of cephalopods is just an absolute anomaly. They literally have the ability to rewrite their own genetic code to adapt to hot or cold climates. Plus, their brains aren't just in their heads. Their neurons are distributed throughout all their tentacles. That means each individual arm can essentially think and solve puzzles independently. This bizarre makeup has actually led some scientists to theorize a legitimate extraterrestrial origin.
This ties perfectly into the theory of panspermia. It's a scientific concept that bridges the gap between grounded Earth biology and extraterrestrial speculation. The idea is that life doesn't just spontaneously start on one planet, but is distributed across the universe. It is entirely possible that millions of years ago, frozen octopus eggs crashed into our oceans riding on a meteorite.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. Whether you're hunting for Templar gold, launching rockets at an invisible desert force field, or just looking at an octopus in an aquarium, humanity's drive to uncover the truth is an unstoppable, thrilling adventure. The unknown isn't just way out there in the stars. It might be right in front of us. The question is, are we looking closely enough? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you next time.